Colleagues and friends, thanks Espen for the question. First, let me as well pay tribute to all those humanitarian workers who have each and every day the courage to overcome fear in some of the most difficult circumstances. I know this is a day of commemoration, but it is also, very frankly, a day of revolt, because we should revolt ourselves against the direct and deliberate attacks on humanitarian workers each and every day. All the training, sensitivities, sensibilizations that we are doing are clueless and hopeless if we don't have the political will to stop deliberate attacks on humanitarian workers, and we should do more than just commemorate. There is no humanitarian action without humanitarian workers, and that's the basis. My second point to respond to Espen's question would be the following. I know that there is a sort of an underlying assumption in many of those discussions that we have, that there is a kind of a convergence of agendas between the humanitarian development and climate change agenda. And on a conceptual level, there is no doubt that we can discuss the relationships of those agendas and that this is a different world in which we are. But representing the Red Crescent movement at ICRC, I have also to voice some concern to mix everything with everything. Neutral and impartial and independent humanitarian action, principled humanitarian action, is distinct and different from more aspirational, long-term development cooperation. It's two different things, and it has to remain different. From the practicalities of our work, we know that we can only have access to people in need if we are credibly neutral and impartial and independent, and we are be seen as credibly neutral, impartial, and independent. So I think there is a point here in, rather than looking at convergence of agendas, having a more differentiated view and see in how far are these agendas interlinked, and in how far do they need to be implemented in a distinct and separate way according to different principles. And here we come to a series of dilemmas. Antonio has mentioned them. There is a dilemma between convergence in the sense of looking for impact, effectiveness, and efficiency of everything we are doing and pooling resources and having a better impact. That's the convergence discourse. But there is also a distinct role and complementarity of actors and principles that we have to respect. There is a trade-off and a balance to strike between humanitarian and development action, and there is certainly a balance to strike between what we know are increasingly drivers of conflict as drivers of climate change in conflict and neutral and impartial humanitarian action. There are balances to strike, and I think the discussion should focus on some of those balances. Where are the agendas really interlinked? At what level have we to think in an integrated, converging way? And where do we need separate and distinct action and actors in order to implement different facets of the problems that Antonio has described? And then my third point as an introduction, as a humanitarian to this panel, would be that with regard to the International Conference of the Red Cross and Red Crescent and the World Humanitarian Summit, I think there is a little bit of rethinking and realignment and priority setting to do over the next couple of months. What would I expect from those two conferences as an outcome? I would expect stronger focus from the World Humanitarian Summit as well as from the International Conference on protection and respect of international humanitarian law. Too much have the preparation been focused on a relatively easy issue of more assistance and more fluid assistance. But at the end of the day, it's about changing behavior and making rules respect, protecting people as well as assisting people. So a refocusing of those summits and international events seems to me important. I think, secondly, it is important to engage state and non-state actors on their responsibilities to provide relief, to ensure impartiality, to emphasize principled humanitarian action, to prioritize needs, access, and proximity over political consideration. We are today in a situation where the neutral and impartial humanitarian space is at stake, and we need states and other actors in the humanitarian summit, in the international conference, to back and strengthen this humanitarian space. Thirdly, we need to adapt humanitarian response to the protracted armed conflicts. I have nothing more to add to the financing and other complex discussions that Antonio has raised. I think that this is critical. The problem is that we have all been founded here on the podium as humanitarian agency designed to respond to the short term. While Antonio has rightly described that what we are challenged with and confronted is long-term protracted conflict producing every year the same humanitarian problems, only deeper and larger and more important. And this is, I would agree with Antonio on what he said. And finally, I think once again, I would like to emphasize the importance, rather than talk about convergence, to talk about complementarity and to find out who has which role in which contexts, rather than to be unclear and unprecise with converging agendas, which at the end of the day are not converging as we experience in the field. Thank you.